The day Taiwan goes is the day that
It is a cascading effect that's catalyzed by a embarrassing loss.
what does this mean for, Grok or ChatGPT? It's because the big beautiful bill adds $4 trillion of debt over the next 10 years. If China takes Taiwan, every country in Asia is going to be told, hey guys, there's a new sheriff in town.
If the dollar is not the world's reserve currency and the idiots in Washington can't continue to deficit spend,
The day Taiwan goes is the day that the CCP tells everyone the emperor has no clothes. Not the United States military might could not hold Taiwan. And if we pretend that we are beacons of freedom, I mean, if we want to be beacons of freedom, we can't just pretend that, we're going to let this island of 25 million people become absorbed by communist China. But there are a lot of implications, and we can talk a little bit about those. But for me, aside from the fact that TSMC, that produces 60% of the world's chips and I guess 90% of the high end ones, that is either going to go to the Chinese, or all of those all the fabs are going to basically get blown up and all the engineers move to the US. In either of those two cases, you have to ask yourself, well, gosh, if the semiconductor manufacturing isn't being done by TSMC, what does that mean for NVIDIA? Wait, what does that mean for AI? What does this mean for Grok or ChatGPT or and the Nasdaq?
what does it mean for the chips in your F-250 pickup truck, or
Your iPhone.
phones or anything?
Everything.
As important as the Arab oil embargo was to the world market in the 70s, gas lines in the United States, remember when they shut it off after the 73 war? Imagine that level of hegemony times 5.
Stuff that you don't think about. Your washing machine has chips in it. Where are you going to get a new washing machine? And everything goes up in price. Not to mention,
If you can get it at all.
if you can get it at all. So chips are important, but I would also make the argument that if China takes Taiwan, it's going to have massive implications for the U.S. economy. Extreme amounts of inflation, high interest rates, job losses.
Because of the chips?
No. It's actually, you're going to have to bear with me. Indulge me for a second, but I'll take you through like a meandering, journey of economics. I'm sure that there are going to be some macro economists out there that are going to try and shoot holes in my argument, but bear with me. Here goes. Let's take stock and understand where we are in our economy. We've got $37 trillion in debt. We've got insane and unsustainable budget deficits. So the U.S. government makes money by taking in taxes, and we spend money on the military, Medicare, Medicaid, whatever, right? The deficits are in the trillions. And when we can't finance those deficits with tax revenue, what do? Well, we issue bonds, right? Treasury bonds and bills and so forth.
Printing money.
See, the way it works is Treasury will issue bonds. They have Treasury auctions. We had one, in fact, last Wednesday. We did a $16 billion auction, but the bidders said, well, gosh, we want the rate to be higher. We won't buy your treasuries unless your 20-year, this is a 20-year auction, are high enough. And they hit a 5 handle, or five and change percent. Why? Well, for many reasons. In part, it's because the big beautiful bill adds $4 trillion of debt over the next 10 years, which seems, financially illiterate because members of Congress just added on a bunch of pork to it. The rating agencies, jumped on the bandwagon. Bond yields fell. But look, like those Mission Impossible movies where, there's a train that's like lurching off a cliff and Tom Cruise is like, trying to escape, and it's like the train is being held by a wire, that's like starting to fray. Like, we're not there yet, but we're approaching that. And so that's the context, okay? Back to treasuries. When people don't buy our treasuries, when large institutions and sovereign wealth funds and, Wall Street doesn't buy it, the Fed becomes a buyer of last resort. How does the Fed do this? Well, as Eric mentioned, by printing money. So, when you print, crazy amounts of money, you have to ask yourself, why don't we look like Zimbabwe or Argentina in the hyperinflationary days? And the reason for that is there's an artificial demand for dollars around the world because the dollar is used in almost everything. Every commodity is priced in dollars.
The world's reserve currency.
The world's reserve currency. Every FX settlement is done in dollars. Foreign exchange is done in dollars. So everyone needs to use dollars in the world. So we can print for a period of time, and the world needs to use it. Okay. Let's take this back to Taiwan. In a Taiwan scenario, if China takes Taiwan, every country in Asia is going to be told, hey guys, there's a new sheriff in town. Why should we trade, Malaysian palm oil in dollars? Why shouldn't it be in renminbi? And China's been trying to erode and chip away at the dollar's reserve currency status in many, many different ways because we can talk about that later.
So this is BRICS.
Yes.
This is partially BRICS. It's partially the ECNY, their digital
Now, if they did take Taiwan, why would they be the new sheriff in town?
So here's the easy corollary. You done?
No, yeah.
Okay.
I went on too long anyway.
No, it was great. No, I didn't want to. It was a great thought. I didn't want to interrupt it. 1804, 1805, Britain defeats Napoleon's navy. Okay, during the Napoleonic Wars, and Britain rules the seas for all the 1800s. The British pound was the world's reserve currency. Britain started to lose that at the Battle of Jutland. Big naval battle against a rising continental industrial power, Germany. They didn't lose, but they definitely didn't win. I would say that marked a pivot in the beginning of the end of the British Empire, which you see collapsing, really ending in the 40s and 50s as all their colonies go away. They lose India. I see the world's reserve currency as the dollar losing that if there is a significant naval loss or even a draw over Taiwan.
I agree. I mean, if you look at,
and that literally cuts off.
So that would be why they're the new sheriff of town, because they
if they're the new if they're able to take Taiwan, and the United States leaves, which they want us to leave Asia, just leave. Mm-hmm. This is our pole of influence. The South China Sea is ours. Taiwan is ours. The Yellow Sea is ours. We have the largest economy. And let's go back to the way things should be in their mind. The way things should be is China is the center of everything, and countries around China are vassal states that pay homage to the emperor every year. That's the way it was 200 years ago,
and
100 years ago.
But they called themselves the Middle Kingdom. All maps produced in China show China as the exact middle of the world.
So they have the economic, military, and cultural might to basically be the sheriff in town. And it's not unreasonable. Look, I'm trying not to catastrophize this too much, but it's not unreasonable for them to push countries in their orbit to use the Chinese renminbi as opposed to the dollar as the currency of trade in Asia. Assuming that happens, you have to ask yourself, what happens to the dollar? And does it cause inflation back here? And if it does, and the Fed's job, among other things, is to counter inflation, what does the Fed do? It has to jack up interest rates. So imagine a world, again, look, I may be going out on a limb here, but imagine a world in which the your mortgage rate, spikes to double or triple what it is today. Or if you're going to finance, your car, how much does it cost? So there's a reason, like economics does play into all of this. Currencies play a role, treasuries play a role. I think unchecked spending as a U.S. government plays a role in this, and I think it's very foolish.
I don't think it just plays a role. It's the fundamental underpinning. If the dollar is not the world's reserve currency, and the idiots in Washington can't continue to deficit spend because no one's going to use those dollars, it forces the U.S. government to actually have a balanced budget and cut deeper. Already, the interest payments on the existing debt, interest payments alone on the debt, exceed the defense budget, which is already too big. Now you start to literally constrict all aspects of American government spending because of, military victories have very economic realities. So it is a cascading effect that's catalyzed by a embarrassing loss, unnecessary loss of Taiwan.
Now, is China's economy just as fragile? No matter where you're watching Shawn Ryan Show from, if you get anything out of this, please like, comment, subscribe, and most importantly, share this everywhere you possibly can. And if you're feeling extra generous, please leave us a review on Apple and Spotify podcasts.